Hey everyone, welcome to Aude and Tulava, where we're walking our way through Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Today we're going over chapter 3. Let's do a quick recap of the chapter and then we'll discuss a couple of themes or topics that the chapter brings up. The chapter starts with Gandalf and Frodo planning the journey. They decide Frodo's to head towards Rivendell with Sam in the fall after Bilbo and of course Frodo's birthday party. The second scandal of the century comes out when people learn Frodo sold Bag End to the Sackville Bagginses. Merry finds Frodo a place in the east of the Shire for Frodo to settle down and retire in. As the hobbits go to leave, Frodo hears someone speaking to the gaffer. Luckily, this person doesn't nose in any further and come up to Bag End to check on Frodo. Off Frodo, Sam, and Pippin go on their couple-of-day journey to Crick Hollow in the new house. An uneventful evening of walking finds us camping in a fir wood with our trio. On they go the next day. Pippin begins to give us a glimpse of who he is. He's tired and he starts complaining about needing lunch. It's about right. He says, "The road goes on forever, but I can't without a rest." Then, of course, we come to our next poem. We'll go over that later in the video. As the day turns to evening, they get their first experience with the Black Riders. One comes up the road behind them, and while they hide off the path, the rider starts to sniff them out, and Frodo starts to move toward putting the ring on. After the rider leaves, Sam finally remembers the gaffer's conversation with a black chap, meaning he was, of course, dressed in all black. Continuing on, we have another poem/song. Woohoo! Let's chat about that a bit later as well. Another, or the same, Black Rider comes up. Frodo has another urge to put the ring on, but Glorian trumpets. They hear clear voices in the air. "Elves!" exclaims Sam in a hoarse whisper. "Elves, sir!" Here the elves come, singing their own song. Snow white, O lady clear. O queen beyond the western seas, O light to us that wander here amid the world of woven trees. Gilthoniel, O Elbereth, clear are thy eyes and bright thy breath. Snow white, we sing to thee, in a far land beyond the sea. O stars that in the sunless year, with shining hand by her were sown, in windy fields now bright and clear, we see your silver blossom blown. O Elbereth Gilthoniel, we still remember, we who dwell in this far land beyond the trees, thy starlight on the western seas. Gildor and Glorian of the House of Finrod, so he'll also be the House of Galadriel. Not exactly how that works, but related. The leader of the elves converses with Frodo. He gives Frodo no more information about who or what the Black Riders are, but of course promises at least to send word to those he can about Frodo's plight so he can have some help at least along the way. The elves provide a safe place for the hobbits to lay down and sleep, which basically that wraps up the chapter. Now, themes I want to touch on. First is hobbitry. There are a few different pieces that I want to acknowledge. During the birthday party for Bilbo, we find Frodo saying, "Whatever happens to the rest of my stuff when the SBs get their claws on it, at any rate, I found a good home for this," said Frodo as he drained his glass. It was the last drop of the old Wynyards. It is, of course, a jest at the SBs or Sackville Bagginses' expense. While Frodo's selling Bag End to them, he still wants a bit of revenge, like old Bilbo with his parting gifts and the spoons. The next little piece of hobbitry is kind of perpetrated by the narrator himself. At this point, I would probably say Bilbo, maybe Frodo. Frodo stepped inside the dark door. "Sam," he called. "Sam, time." "Coming, sir," came the answer from far within, followed soon by Sam himself, wiping his mouth. He had been saying farewell to the beer barrel in the cellar. Why you gotta call it Sam like that? I don't know. It's not something that would really be necessary to the story, except for maybe, I don't know, like showing Sam's character along the way, which is liking beer. But the way it's said is, in my mind, it's pure hobbitry. Of course, Sam was saying goodbye to the beer barrel, even though we don't see him say goodbye to, I don't know, Rosie Cotton. Of course, there's the joking about Frodo being overweight when they set out. But the big one I want to make sure everybody sees is the morning after their first evening camping. "Wake up, hobbits," Frodo cried. "It's a beautiful morning." "What's beautiful about it?" said Pippin, peering over the edge of his blanket with one eye. "Sam, get breakfast ready for 9:30. Have you got the bathwater hot?" Sam jumped up, looking rather bleary. "No, sir, I haven't, sir," he said. Frodo stripped the blankets from Pippin and rolled him over, and then walked off to the edge of the woods. Now, if you've had a chance to check out the Hobbit family trees, you'll know Pippin and Frodo are basically Hobbit nobility. He's the heir to the Took household. Sam, on the other hand, is a gardener. He's a servant, about as not nobility as you can imagine. So here we have Pippin messing with Sam, telling him to get breakfast ready, and Sam just hopping up to oblige. Luckily, Frodo can give as good as Pippin and simply rips the covers off. This whole section is a bunch of hobbitry, but I want everyone to notice something and keep it in mind throughout the book as well. If Sam is involved in hobbitry, he's pretty much always on the receiving end of hobbitry, but he's never giving it. I've heard other people talk about this as well. It seems like this is a class thing. Frodo, Pippin, and Merry are all Hobbit nobility, and Sam is a servant. So the other three will go back and forth, giving and taking, while Sam takes and almost never gives. It never feels like they're necessarily putting him down or actually being mean to him though, but it is just something to notice and kind of keep in mind as we read forward. Next topic I want to touch on briefly is the Black Riders. If you look at these encounters through the lens of a first-time reader, do you think, is it scarier or less scarier, more scary, whatever, than knowing who and what the riders are? Let me know. I'd really love to know in the comments below. All we know right now, they're the size of men, which means they're about twice as tall as a hobbit. They're dressed all in black, ride black horses, can't see their faces, and it seems like they're smelling for the hobbits. Creepiest thing to me is how the ring reacts to the presence of the rider. Each encounter, these two encounters, Frodo has the urge to put the ring on. Knowing what we know, that the Black Riders are servants of Sauron, like since we've read the book, it begs the question, are the riders urging Frodo to put the ring on so they can find him? Like, are they mind melding? Or maybe make him like more susceptible to their influence? Or is the ring reacting to the proximity of their presence? I think this is something to really think about because it informs how you see the other ring interactions in the book moving forward. I personally think it's a little bit of both. I think the ring is reacting to essentially the other ring being worn by the Black Rider, and I think the rider can maybe amp up the ring's influence, but he's not influencing Frodo specifically. Love to know what you guys think. Two more things to go over. First, Hobbit nature. I know it seems like we may have already gone over this in the prologue, but hear me out. This is an important thing in character development. In the prologue, we learn hobbits love peace and quiet, good-tilled earth. A well-ordered and well-farmed countryside was their favorite haunt. Here we have Frodo and Sam knowing full well they are leaving these things behind. I don't know about you. I love my comfort. I tend to order the same thing when I go to a restaurant because I know it's good and it's comforting to know I'm going to get something that I enjoy. I have books I reread, Lord of the Rings notwithstanding, there's other ones too, because it makes me feel comfortable. Even Tolkien considered himself a hobbit and explained why in letter 213. I am in fact a hobbit in all but size. I like gardens, trees, and unmechanized farmlands. I smoke a pipe and like good plain food, unrefrigerated, but detest French cooking. I like and even dare to wear in these dull days ornamental waistcoats. I am fond of mushrooms out of a field and have a very simple sense of humor, which even my appreciative critics find tiresome. I go to bed late and get up early when possible. I do not travel much. And here we have at least 2 out of the 3 hobbits knowing full well that they will be leaving all of that comfort behind, but they're not going against hobbit nature. In fact, it goes right with hobbit nature. We know hobbits used to be travelers based on the prologue, but they eventually settled down and became farmers, ordering the land as they would. But deep down, a part of them needs to travel, to see the world, to take disorder and put order to it. They're doing exactly what a hobbit can be expected to do when the need arises. Keep an eye on how hobbits react to different situations around them throughout the book. We'll see true hobbit nature coming here to the forefront. And lastly, I want to touch on the poems. Why? Because I've learned a lot about them recently and I think they're pretty neat. The first one goes thus. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with weary feet until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say. Now, lots more information about this poem can be found Corey Olsen's Exploring the Lord of the Rings, and this should be in session 11, either on your podcast platform of choice or on YouTube. I'll link the specific video in the description below, most likely with the time code. But aside from that, 2 major things to mention. 1, Hobbit meter. Iambic tetrameter, 4 beats, stressed, unstressed. The road goes ever on and on. The second is the similarity of this poem to Bilbo's poem as he leaves Bag End. As Frodo recites that, Pippin even asks if it was Bilbo's or Frodo's. Frodo said it just kind of came to him as if he was making it up, but he might have heard it long ago. I believe that he heard it long ago from Bilbo. In fact, the only difference in the two poems is the 5th line where Frodo says, pursuing it with weary feet. Bilbo says, pursuing it with eager feet. Frodo hears, again, weary feet. Frodo's very much choosing to go on this adventure, but it's clear he wishes he could have his comfort. But his hobbit nature is pushing him to get order out of the chaos. The second poem I will speak a little bit less about, but it's also in Hobbit name. This is the one that Pippin says. Upon the hearth the fire is red, beneath the roof there is a bed. But not yet weary are our feet, still round the corner we may meet. A sudden tree or standing stone that none have seen but we alone. Tree and flower and leaf and grass, let them pass, let them pass. Hill and water under sky, pass them by, pass them by. Still round the corner there may wait a new road or secret gate. And though we pass them by today, tomorrow we may come this way and take the hidden paths that run towards the moon or to the sun. Apple, thorn, and nut and slow, let them go, let them go. Sand and stone and pool and dell, fare you well, fare you well. Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread, through shadows to the edge of night, until the stars are all alight. Then world behind and home ahead, we'll wander back to home and bed. Mist and twilight, cloud and shade, away shall fade, away shall fade. Fire and lamp and meat and bread, and then to bed, and then to bed. The keen-eared, or remembering people among you, may remember that part of this poem is from the song that Pippin sings to Denethor in the movie Return of the King. Of course, this is a bit less dreary sounding. I just love how it talks about essentially adventuring, but ends with going to bed. It's really just a song about walking and returning home. It's quintessential Hobbit. And of course, more about the song can be found in Exploring Lord of the Rings with Professor Olson. Again, that one will be linked below too. And that's the end of chapter 3. Thank you for watching. For much more Lord of the Rings and Tolkien related videos, please like and subscribe, and please let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my observations. I love to hear different perspectives, politely. Until next time, Auda and Tulava, they shall come again.